Hello and welcome back. Now we have our enemy behavior tree, and so far it only does a single thing, and that's move to a patrol point. In this video, we're going to work on how to move to different patrol points and having the enemy wait for a certain amount of time in between this patrolling behavior. Let's go ahead and get started. Now, in order to patrol to multiple patrol points, we're going to need to have more than a single patrol point. So let's add that to the enemy class. I'm here in enemy.h, and I'm going to scroll to where I have the patrol point, and I'm going to go ahead and copy this code and have a second patrol point f vector, and I'm going to call this patrol point 2. Now, for the comment, we can simply say second point for the enemy to move to. Now, this patrol point 2 has the make edit widget specifier, which means it's going to be a local f vector relative to the enemy. So we need to go into the enemy.cpp file and go all the way up to begin play, where we are transforming the first patrol point to world space. We're going to want to do that for the second one as well. So I'm going to go ahead and create a const f vector called world patrol point 2 and do the same thing we did for world patrol point. That is, I'm going to copy this call to ukismet math library transform location and paste it here, only instead of patrol point, I'm going to use patrol point 2. So now I have a second world patrol point vector. Now, if I want, I can draw another debug sphere. So why don't I go ahead and draw a second debug sphere by copying this call to draw debug sphere and pasting it just underneath. And instead of world patrol points, I'm going to use world patrol point 2. So now we have two spheres that we will see in the game. Now, we have a second patrol point, but if we want to use this with our behavior tree, we need to add another key to the blackboard. So back here in the editor, I'm going to go back to the blackboard. Now here I'm open in the behavior tree editor, but up here at the top right, we have multiple tabs, just like we do with the animations and animation blueprint. There are generally the option to click on the skeleton, the mesh, the NMBP. We have similar functionality here with the behavior tree and Blackboard because they're so tightly coupled together. So if I click on Blackboard, then I get to open my Blackboard. And here we have our patrol point key as well as our self actor key. We can add a new key by clicking the drop down. And I'm going to select vector for this, and I'm going to call this patrol point 2. So now we have a second patrol point. Now I'm going to set the value of this in the enemy's begin play just like we did with patrol point. Go ahead and go back into enemy.cpp. And here we're setting the value of patrol point equal to world patrol point. I'm going to do the same thing for patrol point 2. So I'm copying this and I'm pasting it just underneath. And here we're calling set value as vector. For the first parameter, we're passing in a string for the key name. I'm going to use patrol point 2. And instead of world patrol point, I'm going to use world patrol point 2. Now we can compile this. And once we're done compiling, then when enemies begin play function gets called, these keys will have valid values. Okay, so we've compiled. Let's go back into the editor. And here we have our second control point. Let's go into the behavior tree. And as soon as we're finished moving to our first patrol point, we can move to a second patrol point. Because remember, the sequence will execute the children from left to right. And it will continue doing so until one of them fails. So if this move to succeeds, and we have a second move to, then we'll move on to that one. So let's go ahead and click and drag off. And let's click the drop down next to tasks and find another move to task. Now for this move to task, we're going to set the Blackboard key to patrol point 2. So now as soon as the first move to is finished, then we'll move to the second patrol point. So let's go ahead and save and go back to the default map so we can playtest this. But first, let's move the second patrol point to another location. So I have the patrol point, And the first patrol point is out here to the left. I'm going to move the second patrol point over here on the other side of the barrels. So I'll move it right there, and we can play test this. So let's go ahead and hit play. And there goes the enemy over to that patrol point. And as soon as it reaches that patrol point, it heads over to the second one. And as you can see, the behavior tree starts over. And we can take a look at the behavior tree. Let's hit Shift F1 to get our mouse cursor. And let's take a look at the behavior tree here. Now I'm going to click and drag on the tab to undock this so we can see it. And then I'll go ahead and go back to the default map and take a look. Let's go ahead and scoot back a little bit so we can see the enemy running back and forth. Now take a look at the behavior tree here. It says simulating, and the sequence node, as you can see, is executing the children. And you have this indicator on the execution arrows showing you which task is being carried out at the time. So here we see where on the second move to task, it's in progress. And as soon as it completes, we go back to the first move to task. So this is very useful. We can use this when playtesting. Now take a look at the Blackboard tab, and you'll see down here the patrol point and patrol point 2 have their values set here. So we can see when a key has values. You can see the self actor key has a value of none. It's basically like a null pointer. It doesn't have any valid data. So this is a useful tool that we can use when testing our behavior tree. So now we know how to patrol between two different patrol points. And in the next video, we will continue fleshing out this behavior tree so that our enemy has more intelligent behavior. All right, I'll see you in the next video.